Hello everyone, this is Tim with Paintball Tek. Got a rebuild video for you guys today of a new generation aka slash DC Autococker LPR. This is the latest iteration of this regulator that we used on the Boston Paintball Twister Autococker builds. So I'm going to show you guys how to break it down, replace all the seals in it, and basically do a service. So, I'm going to start with the front cap and the rear cap. Front cap comes off pretty easily. Use a 532 Allen key. Just unscrew it off the front, and then inside you will find the front mainspring right there. And then the rear cap uses a 16mm wrench. This is an old ion velocity adjuster wrench, and just unscrews off the back end of the body. There's nothing underneath this cap. It's literally just an adapter to mount the LPR to the front block. That goes over there. Inside the front section, you will also find the main piston, which you can see in here. Just use a set of needle pliers to pull it straight up and out, like that. And then everything else is housed in between these two body sections here. There's nothing in the back, you can see, nothing left in the front. So, get these apart. Just spin them apart. It can be kind of tight, like this one is, but eventually get them off. Be careful once they separate, because sometimes this piston wants to spring up, like this one's doing right now, because this does have a spring underneath it. So this front housing bit doesn't have anything else in it. It's literally just your basic tube, right? This is where all the rest of the parts are, in the back housing here. So from the top, you've got the retainer piece. It's a little brass piece. This bottom section here can be kind of sharp. I cut my thumb open on it, doing a rebuild earlier. Then you have the retention O-ring, the small piston, the spring, and then underneath that there's a small brass washer that usually you have to get out with a pick if there's some grease on it. See if it'll fall out. Yep, fell out. There's a brass washer. And then underneath that is a small black metric O-ring, which that usually you have to get out with a pick. There you go. That is everything inside this regulator. So, now we're going to go down the list and start replacing the seals. So, first of all, for this back cap, rarely have to replace this O-ring, but if you do, it is a number 12. Set that aside and grab a new one. That can go there for now. The front cap here, this is just a tension O-ring, so unless it's like shredded, you really don't have to replace it. It doesn't seal anything. So we're going to leave that one alone. So I'm going to press the spring in there. This front piston O-ring, go ahead and pull this off. This one is a number 15, standard number 15, so that one's going to go away. Here's our new seal. Okay, go over there. Now before we put anything else back together, we have to reassemble this menagerie of parts here on the bottom. So, this small metric O-ring here seals around the outside of this piston, like that. This is a 5x1mm Buna 90 seal. So, there's our new one. Here's the old one. It's going to get set aside. There is a groove in the bottom of this housing that this O-ring does fall into and sit in. You can try and get it to go down into the groove with like an Allen key or a dental pick or something like that. But if there's any lube residue, oil residue or anything in there, sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate. So easiest thing to do is just line it up as best you can. Get your little brass washer, which is omnidirectional, it doesn't matter which way you drop it in, and drop it on top and flatten it out. And that should press that O-ring into the groove in the bottom of the housing where it's supposed to be. Check to make sure it's not off kilter anywhere. That's fine. Then we're going to drop the spring in. Piston goes in after the spring. This O-ring is a tension O-ring. It also seals this back section here and holds this in the back of the housing. This is a polyurethane 90 durometer 009. So it's a very stiff O-ring. Out. Grab our new one. Easiest way I've found to put these in, just drop it over the stem. Get your retaining piece, put it on the stem. Just kind of press this all into the back section of the housing. Because basically you're trying to seat that piston inside that washer and that small 5x1 millimeter in the base as well. Sometimes these want to pop out like it did when I separated it, so don't be surprised about that. Just kind of press it in there as best you can. If it pops out, then you're just going to use this to push it down and seat it. There is a O-ring between these two parts as well. This is just another 015 O-ring here. Kind of want to just give it a little bit of lube so that when you put this back together, it's easy to tighten down. That again, it's mostly a tension ring. It does seal the halves, but it's very rare that it goes bad. Once the halves are tight together, wipe off any excess grease on the outside so it's easier to work with, right? You can install your back cap like that. And then the front section goes back together. Your piston here with a little bit of oil. Drop that down. And then I like to use the spring to kind of seat it. Just kind of line it up and press it in place. And front cap goes on. It gets tightened down with your 5/32 key. Again, wipe off any excess oil and grease on the outside, and you are good to go. AKA regs use oil, not grease. Sidewinders and LPRs both. So you don't want to use grease when rebuilding these if possible. Not to say that it'll hurt it, but manufacturer spec says to use oil, so that's what we use. The other thing with these regs is they do zero out, so if you have this unscrewed almost all the way, you will not get any pressure out of this hole, unlike the War Games regs, which are preset, the stock regs anyway, or like the Bell Sales regs, which never go all the way down to zero. So that's how you rebuild a AKA/DC LPR. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.